Done it, my friend. Let's crack on.
Let's go. So how are you, James? How was your morning? Or I should say evening, because it is evening at your place.
Yes, I'm very, very well. And thank you again, Jomer, for joining me on this global Speakers Talk community. And our workshop is a forum for young adults.
Yes.
Thank you all for tuning in again to one of our amazing workshops with my dear friend Jomer Deleon. And we always like to start this workshop with thanking all the people who've been working behind the scenes to actually make this workshop happen. You know who you are: Andrea Pintiani, the lovely Anshu Tiwari, the amazing Lisa Marie, and there's some amazing people. You know who you are. Linked to this global speakers community talk, which is an amazing platform for people who are learning public speaking or want to speak on video, on camera, who are a little bit shy, who want to learn their speaking skills. This platform can actually do that for you so that you can grow and build your confidence on screen and on video. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for supporting us always as usual. Thank you for all your support. We appreciate it. Me and Jomer really appreciate it. And we really hope that you like the workshop what we're going to talk about today. And my dear friend Jomer Deleon is going to talk. And this is the feedback, really, isn't it, Jomer, regarding my dear friend James Gregory, who we interviewed last month. And we're really going to share some really important information what James actually shared with us, and we're going to feedback on that and how it resonates in our lives and what we've taken away and what we're actually doing in society. What are we taking on board? Is society, what we live in the community, really important to us? And if it is, who we collaborating with, who we're working with to make our community and society a better place. So, Jomer, I'll take it over to you, my dear friend.
Yes, as you have said, Frankie, we had an amazing guest last week, your dear friend James, and a lot of comments who tuned in that session. Their comments were definitely very amazing comments. They were heartwarming comments, and makes a lot of sense because Jim's story, it was just definitely what's the lack of word, where it really grabs you. Some of the things that he said, how from the time that he lost his son and the journey that where it led him, how from tragedy to and he used the tragedy to transform his life and also transform other people's lives along the way. And I know that grief sometimes we all deal with it, and we all deal with it differently. And obviously James has to go through his own grieving when he lost his son. And those are some of the things that I want to share with you as to what are the lessons that I've learned from James, and also in my life journey, in my own grieving as well, when I lost my mom at a very young age. And I'm going to let you tell your own story, Frankie, as you yourself also had to go through your own grieving when you lost your son. So let's go back to James. James, I really enjoyed that time with James. Here's a man who lost his son. Again, just to if you missed that session, I highly encourage you to watch that session and really hear it from James, the emotions, the feelings as he shared his story when he lost his son. So how imagine real quick, just you being called, said, hey, come over here, and something happened to your son, and next thing you know, when you get to the event, you get to the place, only to find out that your son got shot in the head. I mean, how would you react to that? How would you respond? I don't even know how I would respond to it. So there he was, he said, I saw my son with a fresh bullet in my head. I like, I can't even fathom how I would react to such thing. But there, that's the beginning of James' life transformation in relation to impacting other youth along the movie, and after that very traumatic and tragic incident. He said something that's very important, and I think it's pretty much kind of says the things why James does what he does in regards to working with youth, especially troubled youth. Here's what he said. It says, from losing a child, I'm able to save a child. From losing a child, I'm able to save a child. And that is a very, very powerful statement. I said, it is through my losing my child, through that tragedy that happened. Because of that tragedy, and he did say, I don't want anyone to go through that, because he knows, he understands the pain of losing a child, especially in that in a way that he lost his son. But at the same time, he understood as well that it was that very traumatic, unfortunate, for the lack of word, of incident. It was also that event that allowed him to be able to do the things, or what led him to do the great things that he's doing now, saving others' lives, saving others' youth, troubled youth. So that's one thing I've gained from James and listening to him. What about you, Frankie? What other we'll bounce back and forth, so that I just won't be talking the whole long time. So let's go back and forth. What about you? What is one thing that, I know you got a lot of things, but share at least one thing that your own takeaway from James, and then bounce back to me when you're done.
It's really important what you actually brought up there, Jomer, what James actually said. Losing a child, helped him to save a child's life, which is really important. And I love that African is a word probably of the African saying, the saying that Africans say. He says, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a child. And I think sometimes I feel, for me, growing up, for me, Jomer, probably you've experienced this yourself, I honestly feel, and it's not our parents' fault, but as I've gotten older, I've really seen the values that we are taught, not just from our family, but in society in general. And some of the sayings, what people say, like, children should be seen and not heard. Now, when I hear that, I think to myself, what a stupid saying. Children should be seen and not heard. So for my saying, John, what I would say is children should be respected, should be seen at all times.
Yeah.
Because some of this experience, what I went through, John, growing up, especially if I knew I was in trouble, or I may have had a fall, or I might just be fighting, I'll just get into a fight, or, I may have an accident, yes. If you're supposed to be in at a certain time, Jomer, and you're late and you're not in, it's obvious that your parents are going to worry and wonder where you are. So I do feel, Jomer, that, children should be seen at all times, they should be heard at all times. Because your parents will always check up on you, or see where you are, or see if you are out. Or like nowadays, in the 21st century, the world that we're living in now, Jomer, we have a lot of communication. We have a lot of mobile phones and information technology. It gives a lot of gadgets and phones and things that we can use to connect with each other and talk with each other. In our days, John, growing up, we didn't have anything like that, did we? We didn't even have any mobile phones. So, the communication was very, very minimum, So we had to trust that, and the parents had to trust that when we was going out with our friends, that we'd be come back safe and sound. Does that make sense, Jorma? So I believe sometimes the wordings and the values what we brought up with, I feel are so wrong. They're not the right pronunciations. I think we should really care for everybody, and make sure we know where everybody is and have an eye for where people are, So I hope that answers your question, Joe, and hope and the audience answers, what the audience feel about that. That the values we brought up with can be look a bit wrong or come across as not as caring or compassionate as, important as what it should be as a family and as a parent, as a child growing up. So I hope that helps, Joe, and audience.
Yeah, and that's exactly one of the things that James said. As far as one of the things that he said also, that because of what happened to his son, and him going through that tragic event, he also said that it got him thinking about the society, how the society is at the moment. And also he also spoke about the violence in general that's happening in the society. And he mentioned something that is very crucial, that I feel is very crucial as well as a solution to, or at least it might not solve all the society's problems, or the youth problems. But he mentioned something that which I wholly truly believe it is also a big component, answer to the troubled youth out there, is the importance of fatherhood. The importance of father. You're a father, I'm a father, and I'm sure we have a lot of members in the GST who are father as well. And the presence of the father in someone's life, it's so crucial. It's so vital. And I remember that I have a friend of mine, and he kind of shared the story of how he visited different countries as a missionary. And one of the things that he noted, what she noticed, was in the commonality that he saw in a lot of youth in the countries that he visited, was there were a very sad thing that I saw. She said is that they were lacking in leadership of the father in children's life. Sometimes the father are there, but they don't do the role of their father to protect, to provide, to lead, to provide guidance to their children. They're just there existing. Some fathers, as you know, they walk away from their family. It's very sad, but it's unfortunate, but that's true. So speaking from a fatherhood's point of view, I find that that's a big part of my responsibility as a father, is to make sure that I provide the proper guidance that my daughter and my sons need, and my son as well, through words, just like what you said, and through our action as well. It's so crucial. Again, my upbringing, my father, I barely saw my dad because of he had to go somewhere in another country to work and to provide for me and my family. So even though he wasn't actively present in my life, I know that he was present in a way that he had sacrificed so he can provide for me and my mom. And every time that he had opportunity to provide wisdom and guidance, so that I won't live my life in a way that would lead me into trouble. He always provided that for me, even though the physical time with him was very limited when I was growing up because for that reason that he had to work in Saudi Arabia so he could provide for me and my mom. But nevertheless, he made sure that him being away doesn't mean that he was absent in my life. Him being away didn't mean that his love was absent in my life. So he always made sure that I might be away from you, but my love is always be there for you. And he did it through sacrifice. He did it through every time that he was able to spend time with me, he made sure that he loves me and he appreciated me. So that's one thing I've learned from James about, it says the importance of fatherhood in dealing with a lot of youth who are going astray, youth who are lost, not really know what's the meaning of their life, what's the purpose of their life. There's no fatherhood that provides guidance and gives them those answers that can lead them to a better, healthier, and productive living. So yeah, that's just one thing I got. Jim's got me thinking about the importance of fatherhood in my role in my family, and also the role of fatherhood in general. What about you, Frankie? What's your take of the importance of fatherhood in relation to families and so forth?
Thank you for sharing that, John. What you said, I thought it was really important about that male role model, that father figure. Yes, and it's interesting how myself, you as well, Joe, and James, our fathers wasn't around a lot, even though they were very busy men. My dad had his own business and he spent a lot of his time at his business. Unfortunately, it affected our family. I'm not saying that as a bad man at all, no. But sometimes a father figure is really, really important, Joe. You're absolutely right. And I'm sure that James understands that as well. The father figure is really important, so that when you're going through the difficult and challenging times, your father usually has the wisdom or the knowledge to point you in the right direction. If he feels like you're going off track, I'll give you some guidance, I'll give you some warnings, and being that best friend to you, which a parent should be. So yes, I understand the importance of not having a father around, and I'm sure you do, Joma, and the kind of maybe it brings a bit of insecurity towards your life. You feel a bit insecure, or you feel like, you want somebody to speak to at a very challenging or difficult time in your life. And you know that your parents have always got the wisdom and the knowledge and the education to give you that information that you need to hear for your life if they feel that you're going off track a little bit. And we all go off track a little bit, and sometimes we try to get back on the right track. It happens to us all. But yes, it's something that is really important, and the father figure is something that a son and a daughter yearn to have. The daughter loves a father figure as well, just as well as the son.
Yeah.
And it's really important that we have the balance of even the mother and the father is really important as well, Joma, but the structure of the family, to have that real balance of having them two role models in our life, which can really ground us as people and really make us better people and more understanding people, and understand the family structure, that family tree, to me, Joe, my audience, that's really important. But unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world. In an ideal world, we'd love to have that, but unfortunately, the world sometimes is not like that, because we have challenges, we have ups and downs, and I think it's always challenging to bring up a family, isn't it, or to raise a family, because nobody tells us what to do, John. Nobody gives an instruction book. This is how you bring up a family. We've got to go out there. We've got to learn ourselves how to bring up our children and how to love our wives or our husband, and we've got to learn through trial and error, through making mistakes, through living our life. It's it's in living color, isn't it? The life we live is living color. It's real. There's no rehearsal, so we always try to get it right, but we're only human after all, and we're going to make mistakes and we're going to get things wrong, but it's how we react to the mistakes. It's how we react to the adversity, the hiccups, the hurdles, the challenges, what's thrown at us. How do we react to it? How do we grow from it? How do we learn from it as a family, as people? That's the key to trying to protect our family, protect our loved ones. So does that answer your question, or does that answer your question, Joma?
Well,
About
definitely. Yeah. Again, that you as a father, you understand the value of being present, right? Being present in your family, in your children's life, and the importance of that, and the danger of not being present in their life as well. Now, I'm just kind of going back to all the notes that I took. So from time to time when I look down, it's not because I'm talking to you, Frank, and also to the audience, not because I'm disconnecting with you. From time to time, I kind of glance on my notes on the things that I learned from James, the things that I feel like I want to share in our session that are crucial. Again, kind of going back to the James story, you know, he because of that event, that when he lost his son, he started an amazing organization called Father Against Violence. I think if I have the notes correctly, the Father Against Violence was established in 2016. So, and from what James had said, it's truly doing an amazing things right now. So I'm so glad to hear how the Father Against Violence is positively impacting the youth and the community where this where James lives. And he said something that is very powerful as well, which I feel that if he didn't learn how to do this, or if he decided not to choose to do this way, I think it would have been impossible for him to create the Father Against Violence. Here's what he said. He said, after after that very tragic incident, he had to go through the moments of kind of reflecting his own life, going through his own grieving process, and through all that time, he said this. I said, I had to I had to find a way to forgive. And I said, I had to find forgiveness within myself and to free myself. Because I felt that he was, he had regrets. I mean, so I thought the things that important, what he said is that I had to find forgiveness. I have to learn to forgive so that I can be free, so I can free myself. Because I was just thinking, I mean, just imagine the bitterness that probably he experienced. Because I know I would. That's exactly how I would feel, so bitter towards a person who harmed and killed my child. I would have so much hatred towards that person. I'm just being honest. Now, as a person, if someone would have did that to my child, I think as a human nature, you would want, I'm speaking for myself. I know that first thing I would want to know is that who is this person and where can I find them? How can I retaliate? How can I do something? So some of you guys who are watching probably think differently than I do, but I'm just being honest about how I would feel if that happened to me. And I think that's exactly how kind of James felt at the moment. And that's why he said, I had to find forgiveness. I had to learn to forgive. Because I know that if I would not learn to forgive this person, I would be a prisoner of this tragic event. It would be difficult for me to move forward with my life if I did not learn how to forgive. And because that he was able to find forgiveness and able to free himself from the bitterness and probably for other things that negative feelings that obviously he had the right to feel because of what happened to his son, but he learned to forgive, and because of that he was able to move forward and create this amazing group that he established or founded in 2016, which is the Father Against Violence. It just shows how the power of forgiveness, that forgiveness can be applied to us when we do dumb, stupid things that sometimes becomes our own ball and chain in our life. If if we don't learn how to forgive ourselves, because we all do dumb things, that's just reality, just being human. We do things that we don't want to do, and then sometimes the consequences is much heavier than we thought. And if we don't learn to forgive ourselves for doing those things, those ball and chains that came from that stupidity can drag us all through our lives.
Mm.
And that will prevent us from moving forward with the great things that we're capable of accomplishing, because we have not learned to forgive and let go of the wrong stupidity that we have done in the past.
Really, really important points you brought up there, Jomer. Really important.
But since James was learned to forgive himself and also whoever did that to his son, he was able to move in a place, or in a space where he can have compassion towards the people that did that to his son. And from that compassion, his compassion expanded to other troubled youth out there, which led them to create the Father Against Violence. So my question to myself, to you as well, and to our audience, are there things in our lives that we have not learned to forgive ourselves, that we did something a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, however long it may be, that if we're honest enough, you know what, I have not, if I'm honest, I haven't really learned to forgive myself for that stupidity or the wrong things that I did in the past. And because of that, it has slowed me down in really living my full ability as a person, right? It's something to reflect about, something to think about. Are there things in your life, that, for example, and I'll just throw it to you. Years ago, I did a stupid thing, but when I was about 18 years old, I think it was, I have shared this story with you where I got in trouble for breaking and entering into a car, and I was in jail. I think I don't even remember. I think I blocked it in my mind, but I was in jail. I think I was in 3 days in jail for breaking into a car. And because of that, I haven't seen my son since he was 8 months old or 3 months old. He lives in Canada with his mom, but we have an amazing relationship, though we haven't seen each other. But I made sure that all through these years, I'm present in his life as much as I can, the best way I can, even though I can't be there in the present. But having said that, it's something that I had to deal with. For a long time, I felt so guilty. I felt so ashamed of what I did, because of that prevented me from being able to spend time with my son. But one day I said, you know what, Jomer, it happened. You learn from it, and you're doing your best to make sure that even though you're not present physically with your son, but you're doing your best to let him know that he has a father who loves him so dearly in any possible way that you're able to do. And just to shorten the story, I have an amazing relationship with my son, whom I haven't had seen since he was only 5 months old. But yet the closeness that we have as a father and son, it's sometimes much tighter, much closer than the fatherhood, the father and son that I see within families and other families and friends. It's because I made sure that though I might not be there present physically, I will do my best to let this child know from that point on, from that when he was a toddler until now, that he has a father who's present in his life, might not be physically, but always going to be there for him in any possible way that I can. And I just had an amazing conversation with him a few days ago, and we're looking to plan for him to come and visit me sometime the end of this year, and we look forward to that.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Jomer, for sharing that. You said some really important points there, Jomer, and audience, and I do agree with Jomer. What we have to remember as well, James was a twin, and his son was born on his birthday. And for me, my brother, we lost our stepfather on my brother's birthday. So the pain that can leave, you're always reminded of certain events and certain things what happen in your life when you've lost somebody, especially when you've been murdered, that it brings it back, that memory of that person. So it's always to be prepared for that, because sometimes you may not want to celebrate it, or you may want to, or you may not just want to just either pray for his life, or you might just want to just remember for who he was. So it's really important to remember that as well. And it's really important to grieve. I think we have to grieve properly.
Yes.
I know when I've lost certain people close to me in my family, I didn't grieve properly. And it led me, as Jomer said in the audience, to do stupid things. Because when you don't grieve properly, it can affect your mental health. And if it affects your mental health, you can end up doing stupid things. And it's like escapism away from the pain. And for me, as I've gotten older, I've realized that, I have to grieve properly. I have to understand the situation, what happened. And then I've got to grieve properly, and I've got to grieve with the families and to make sure that everybody's okay, but to grieve properly. And then, as Jomer said, it's this courage to forgive, this strength to forgive, because when we forgive, we have the strength to move on with our lives. I think it's really important, and it's hard. Don't get me wrong, audience, Jomer, it is very hard, but if we don't move on, we get stuck in the pain and the suffering. Our lives don't move on. And what I tend to know what happens when we don't move on from a death or somebody we've lost. We get stuck in that grief, and it can drag us down. It can lead us into a state of hell and into a state of depression. And that feeling of, like Jomer said, revenge. I want revenge for that person. So, talking from my point of view and what Jomer said, that our dear friend James Gregory, who lost his son. I mean, I've lost a son as well. So I know the pain of losing somebody when you love somebody who's been murdered. I know what it's like. Because you've got to think to yourself, well, I've got to deal with this, but you cannot think of how your families are feeling and how the other families are feeling. When people have to go to court or they're brought to justice, and you have all that pain of families squabbling and arguing and stuff like that, because it does happen. So you've got to carry all that pain. So for me, the most sacred thing, what I did, was to pray in my faith, because I pray every day, pray in my beliefs for the person who's made it his life, that he's going to be born and is going to be happy in the exact place where he needs to be for his life, and to not try and become a victim, because the person who's been killed, like Guseki James's son and my son Kieran McGrath, they didn't want us to be unhappy because they know that it wasn't our fault. If anything, what they would want us to do is to see how we can still connect to our son's life, but what we can do in society to make it even more better and safer place. So even though our sons are not here now, we still have that deep connection, Jomer, with their lives, that they've left us something behind, so we can fight for something in society and in the community for a better place and for a better world. So yeah, don't become a victim, become a victory. Use it to create real value in your family's life and in your life, that you're going to change something in society and in the community over this. traumatic incident, and the pain it never goes. But as we get stronger and as we let it go and as we forgive, we become more stronger and more, it becomes more bearable to cope with it. We don't forget, but we always remember what happened. It becomes more bearable, sorry, because we've moved on. We've forgiven the situation, what's happened, and we've accepted it and said, right, we need to move on for our lives and for the sake of the person who's died, for their lives as well, because they need to rest in peace now. So really, really important. I really hope that that information was valuable, and the importance of really creating values out of a traumatic situation is really important as well. It may give us that strength just to forget and forgive and to move on and to do something of value, of creativity, of really something to remember your son by, and how you're going to really connect with his life, even though he's not here, that you're still connected with his life at a deeper level. Thank you.
You said a lot of very, very powerful things, my dear friend, and I know it's from my own experience. When I went through my own grieving, when I lost my mom. I was 12 years old when I lost my mom. She had an aneurysm in the brain, and as I went through my own grieving process, it was very challenging. Since I didn't know really how to go through it, I even pushed away people who loved me. I pushed away people who I closed my door. I closed the door of my life, even for the people who were there for me to express their love and provide guidance as I went through that very difficult time. I can still remember that. So when my mom died, her older brother, him and his lovely wife, which I call also my second mom, Mama Doris. I lived with them after my mom passed away and my dad was working in Saudi Arabia. And so they did their best to share their love, to let them know that I'm not by myself. But yet I can still clearly remember they will knock in the room that they gave me, that at their house. Hey, Jomer, let's have dinner, or Jomer, let's do this, or let's hang, let's spend time with, they want to spend time with me, and with my three sisters, which is their daughter. I would pretend that I would be sleeping, even though I'm fully awake. I just try to avoid it. I avoided spending time with them. Because I didn't really know how to react through the grief that I was going through. I didn't really know how to respond through it. And I'm saying this because what you said earlier was it's very crucial to understand the importance of grieving and how if we don't deal with grieving, if we're not mindful in how we go through grieving, it can lead us into a dark place in life. I know someone who, a quick story, and then we'll go back to James, and since we're talking about grieving, a good friend of mine and a former coworker of mine, her dad passed away, and her mom was still alive at that time. But since the mom did not know how to deal with grieving, which I can understand, it's difficult to lose your husband. But the point is, since she didn't really know how to go through it, she fell into gambling, she fell into drinking, she fell into a lot of vices that really was not healthy for her, for the mom. And eventually those vices led to affecting the daughter's life negative way. So the action of the mom dragged her own daughter down. And that's why it's so crucial that if we go through difficulties in life, and not necessarily just grieving because you lost someone, but just going through difficulties and challenges of life, which we all know that we all have them to a certain degree, one way or the other. It's so crucial to make sure that we reach out to the people who we know that we can trust. It's so vital to let the people know who are close to us that, hey, I'm going through this, whatever this is, and I definitely need you for me to go through this in a healthy way. That's just what I want to say about that. So just make sure that as you go through your own difficulties in life, don't push the people who wants to help you, especially your family. Let them know that you're going through a very dramatic, tragic, dark time in your life, whatever that is at the moment. So they know they can come alongside of you and they can go through this journey with you, where you can find the support that you need until you're done through this momentarily of darkness in your life. So having said that, I want to, if you don't mind, Frankie, I want to go back to some of the things that what James said that I think it's worth mentioning in our time, which is this also. He said that I never felt like a victim. I think this is so important. Towards the end of his session, he said, you know what? Even though I went through that dark, difficult tragedy of losing my son, but I never felt like I was a victim. And I think that is so vital, right? So vital to understand, because he felt that he felt that he wasn't a victim. So therefore, he was able to, at least in my understanding and what he was saying, that he was in a place to make choices. And you say, I can make choices. I can choose how I want to express this difficult time through my action, through my deeds. Yeah, I'm not shackled down because of this tragic event. I'm not shackled down to the point where I can't choose to use this event in a positive way. The way I understood what he said was, this tragic event, I'm not going to allow it to stop me from doing the good things that I know that I'm capable in doing. He did not ignore the pain that he was going through. He didn't ignore the sadness that he was going through from losing his son. He acknowledged all those things. But at the same time, he says, I'm not going to allow this event stop me from helping other youth that I know I'm capable of helping. I think that's another thing. I think that's another powerful thing that he said.
I think it's really important as well, like what you said, Jomer. I talked about, it's either victim or victory, but
yes,
you can feel
a real,
you can feel a real sense of, still being connected to your son, but a real sense of, God, I've got a real mission now to make sure that my son's name doesn't die in vain.
Yes,
I'm going to make sure my son's legacy and his name lives on in my life, and remember him through what I'm going to do for our sons who've been murdered. It's about us really finding that mission statement, that value, to make sure this doesn't happen again, or to make sure no other parent or family have to go through this tragic event. Because we're doing our own grieving, but remember, your families, they're grieving in their own way. Some people want revenge. Then you get all the conspiracy theories, you get all the squabbles and the fighting and all the bickering and the retribution and people wanting revenge. So you've got to deal with all that. And if it makes headline news, what it did with my son, you know, you got them making their own conspiracy theories. You've got it in the papers, and they're doing all their back chats, and they're doing all their rubbish talk. And then you've got to deal with all them kind of negative aspects of what people think with their conspiracy theories about what happened. So, you know, you've got to take on that kind of trauma as well. And like Jomer said, it's really important that you really have victory in everything. You have victory in everything from the family down to the people being brought to justice, down to people being happy, down to people moving on with their lives, down to people rebuilding their lives, down to people remembering the people who passed away, that there's something positive about them, you know, just to really remember to do your best to make them happy, to make them look at you from the universe or from the heavens. Or, you know, if you you know what I mean, when you're spiritual, when you're deep, when you feel a deep connection to your child when they're not here, because you're always connected. Energy is never broken. So, you know, they're always there watching over you. And they're probably there protecting you as well, Jomer, you know. You got to remember they're protecting you, they're watching you, they're seeing how you're going to carry on, you know, their lives and their legacy and what you're going to do. You know, and I think it's important of you know, just to remember that you know, we have to be mindful. We have to be mindful, because usually what you tend to find, people aren't mindful. People make up their own conspiracy theories. People want to gossip. People want to, you know, make their own stories up. So you need to be grounded. You really need to, as Jomer said, find them people who are really close to you. Find them people who are really, you know, who really want to grieve with you and who are right beside you to share that grief and suffering and that pain, and that they're with you, they understand. You know, you get as much support as you possibly can. Really important to get as much support as you possibly can. And I'm talking about my experience as well, you know, which I've just talked about with Kieran McGrath, you know, it was a very traumatic experience, but I learned so much from it. I really learned so much from it. And, you know, the grieving process was painful for everybody. But, you know, we have to pick our lives up and move on. Start fighting for you know, a better world and a better society to live in, and a better community, you know, and to remember them values of that person and of you and of what you're going to do to make things a little bit more easier and better for everybody, you know. So really important to think about that.
Thank you for that, Frankie. There's one last thing I want to mention that I think it's worth mentioning. I think it's kind of, since we're the part of the things that we want, what we do is every month, hoping that the young adults who will tune in to these sessions, or parents who tune in to this session, that will be able, that where somehow we can add some value to them in how to live a healthy and productive lifestyle. And James said something that I think we all parents can relate, especially, or if you're an individual who's working with youth. He said something, said, younger people are not hard to reach. They just need people to listen to them. Yeah, when I heard that, it got me thinking about my own daughter, because she's in the age right now where she's 13, I think. I've got to make sure I know her age. She's 13, moving to 14. I don't know about you. I'm sure, or just me, but I think it's more to be sure that as parents, sometimes we have difficulty of reaching out, or if you're an uncle or an aunt, sometimes you find difficulty reaching out to your nephew or nieces, or your daughter and your son. So younger people are not hard to reach. They just need people to listen to. And recently I had to learn this. As a father, you know, you want to provide guidance to our children, and sometimes that I feel that guidance can only come through speaking. Like, you need to do this. You need to avoid this. You should do this or that, right? So it's mostly about telling. And I realized, and then I started to think more and learn. And then what James said, I says, you know what? I need to listen more to my daughter. Instead of just telling, just, hey, how come you weren't on time? How come you this, that, this? So what I started doing, it's just to listen more to my daughter. And how I do that is I ask questions. I ask questions. Said, so how's your day? How's your week? How are you doing with your homework? How are you doing with this? How are you doing with that? And then I learned that by asking questions, she's more open to share her own life story and her own struggles, her own challenges in her own lives. And I definitely see a huge difference between the relationship that I have with her now compared to when I was just, how come you didn't fix your bed? How come, you make sure you fix your bed before you leave? I asked you 10 times to pick up the garbage and all those things. Well, I guess what I'm saying is that I'm learning to be more mindful of, let me just listen to you. What happened? How was it that you said you're going to do this and you have not done it so far? Can I help you? Well, what's stopping you from doing this? Right, just the listening part of it. That itself I can slowly see how me and my daughter's relationship have evolved to more harmonious, simply because I become more mindful of, I want to listen more instead of just talking and telling. I thought that was a very powerful thing that he says, that younger people are not hard to reach. They just need people to listen to them. What's your thought on that? What's your thought on that, Frankie?
I think what James said there was really, really important, what James said there. And I think it's really important as fathers and as parents to really be our best friend to our children, to be their best friends. They are adults at the end of the day, they're human. So listen to them, be their best friends, and give advice. Don't tell them what to do. Because my experience of growing up, and I'm sure Jomo and James can relate to this, when parents tell you not to do something, you want to know why you can't do it. And you end up doing it and end up getting yourself hit or getting yourself into trouble. So always give advice and give them the right advice from your wisdom. And let them have a look at it and let them think of it. Because when you're a best friend to your child, it's better because you'll be able to connect with them and, communicate with them a lot better. You become their best friend. They trust you. There's a trust there. They trust you because, that does give me some good advice. He's not telling me what to do, but he's giving me some good advice. And they trust you a lot more because you're not demanding them. You've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to do this. It always has consequences. Nobody, and my experience, and I'm still learning this now at my age, the age of 54, that a lot of people and nobody really doesn't like being told what to do. We never don't like being told. We know we've got all the answers. Don't tell me what to do. I'm absolutely fine. I know what I'm doing. And then when you get it wrong, you think, I need to check in with my own ego here, So always remember, yes, to what I've learned, because I'm a coach and a mentor, and I've seen the people in my life who've mentored and coached me. And what I've learned, one of the big aspects of what I've learned, and James touched on this as well, is to always ask for help. James always talked about asking for help.
Yes.
Very, very mature, very, very wise and very, very adult, very, very adultery you are when you ask for help. It's so important. Just asking for help. James touched on that. Always ask for help. Always ask for feedback. Always ask for guidance. And as a coach, I know the importance of listening, exceptional listening. Jomer knows that. So we have to have exceptional listening as a father, as a parent, to listen to our children. Spot the signs where you think, oh, are they in danger? Spot the times where you think, oh, what are they worried about? Because sometimes when I don't see my daughter and then I see her, I always think, I wonder why she's not contacting me over the past couple of weeks. I wonder what she's been up to over the last couple of weeks. Why has she not been in touch with me? Always think, always ponder. For me, that's a sign of a leader as well. Always think, always ponder, always be curious of what your children or what your child is doing, no matter what age they are, because, it's unconditional love. We love our parents, we love everybody till the day we move on to the next life. But always think, always ponder, always be curious of where your child is, as
I love
Jane
that.
actually touched on.
I
And
love
I
that.
think when we're deeply connected to our children, Jomer and audience, we can have this sixth sense that something isn't right. You have this sixth sense that something's not right here. You have that really deep friendship, connection, that real deep love and understanding of what it takes to have that father and child or that mother and child relationship. There's a deep bond there, isn't there? And we know when something isn't right. So always act on your gut instinct.
Mm.
Always ask for help, but always take the action if you feel something isn't right. Trust your gut, go with your gut instincts. But always remember, keep an open mind. Always be open-minded with your children. Treat them like adults, treat them like human beings. And believe me, that respect, as James and Jomer says, comes back a lot easier. We live and learn, don't we?
I know we're trying to stay within an hour time, so we have about 6 minutes. So I thought what we can do, Frankie, is just kind of recap so we can finish on time. We can kind of recap what we have been talking about for the last 45 minutes or 15 minutes. So if you would put in your in a bullet point form, your major takeaways from James, even in your own life as well, that you feel will benefit our listeners, the parents, and also the young adults who will listen to this video, watch this video, what would be your 3 key takeaways that you feel are worth re-mentioning or reminding the listeners?
Understand the negatives of what is happening and understand the positives of what is happening. James talks about he got no recognition from nobody or any help. When that happens, I went through it, it's a lonely place. And the reason why it makes it lonely as well is because we're not connected to people who're supposed to be connected to, even if it's our families or people who are close to us. So remember, the reason why a lot of people in this world go through depression and loneliness is because they don't feel a sense of unity or connection around them. So remember that, always remember that when sometimes you're not, and you feel you're not getting any support, always connect to the people closest to you, which is really important. Seek out the people who really want to help you in a very tragic and traumatic time. I believe as well, me just talking about it now to Jomer and James talking about it last week on our workshop about losing somebody or somebody being murdered, or even somebody who's just died suddenly. Murder is really tragic and sad, but death is sad anyway, yes? Remember that the grieving process for you to heal is to actually talk about it to somebody. Like me, I'm talking about it now to the audience and to Jomer. James was talking about it last week to the audience and to Jomer and to myself. So grieving process is really good to talk about. Sometimes it might be about your son if you lost, but to really talk and keep talking and have that heart-to-heart dialogue. And grieving means as well, if you want to cry, cry, because it's the best way to get over grieving. Cry, express how you feel. Don't hide it. It takes a man to cry. So cry and be in touch with your emotions and feelings always. Really grieve properly and really look for the people who really want to support and help you. So I hope that's okay with you, Jomer. I'm going to share that and leave that there with you. Yeah. And please, yeah.
Great
Look after
takeaway.
yourselves. Look after yourself. That's the main important thing.
Great takeaways. Thank you, Frankie, for those key points that you shared with us. My takeaways in this whole thing are, one, is that the first thing that popped to my head is learning to forgive. Learning to forgive, because either families or friends, or if you know that you're holding bitterness towards someone because of what happened in the past, if we don't learn to forgive, that event will continue to become a ball and chain in our lives, and that this ball and chain will prevent us to really fully moving forward and fully experiencing the joy that we're capable of being able to experience. And sometimes the ball and chain prevents us from pursuing great things and future successes down the road, because we have allowed this event in the past to act as a ball and chain in our lives. So learning to forgive, which will free us from it, which will open opportunities for us to do more greater things for us and to other people as well. Grieve well, meaning that, yes, don't ignore the sadness, don't ignore the pain, don't ignore the feeling of loss. But at the same time, make sure do not push, just what you said, Frankie, make sure do not push away the people who are there for you, who says, how can I help you go through this difficult time? And be clear to them, said, hey, this is how you can help me go through this difficult time in my life. So they know exactly in how they can help you, and not guessing. And don't, put them in a place where they can be successful in helping you. That's what I'm trying to say. Instead of them guessing, oh, how should I help this, how should I help Jomer in this difficult time? But if I would tell them, hey, this is how you can help me, now they're in a better place to make right decision in how they can help me, because I have expressed that to them. Last thing is listen more. This is, again, I'm just kind of telling myself, listen more when we have young ones in our lives, or even just in general, in relationship with your family, with your husband, with your wife, friends, other family members and coworkers. Adapt the attitude of, what, instead of just me talking and talking, what if I would listen more? What if I would learn more about my child, my daughter, my coworker, and see really where I can help them? And I think that will change our relationship so much better if we become more mindful and purposeful of, let me hear your story, so I know how I can become a better friend for you, a better husband, a better wife, a better father, a better mother. So those are my takeaways from our event with our dear friends James. And I just want to say that if you're a member of GSD and if you're watching this video later, me and Frankie have decided that we want to host members as our guest in this event, in our future event. So if that's something you're interested in, if you're a coach, or you just want to share your story with us, that you feel that, "Hey, I want to share my story, that I think there's a lot of lessons in my life story that can help the members of GST, or the young adults who will be watching and learning from it," don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll make sure we will definitely reach out to you and set a time sometime down the road when you can pop up and join us and just have a wonderful conversation with us. I appreciate you for tuning in with us. Frankie, I'm going to let you close us, and thank you again for tuning in with us.
Thank you so much, Jomer, for your amazing input as always, your experience, your rich experience of life. Jomer talked about listening. When we mean listening, we don't mean selective listening. We mean listening carefully and properly. I'm still working on it. It's very, very hard to really sit and listen. But there's real value in sitting and really listening to somebody. Not your selective listening, because we love to do that. Sit there and listen intently and properly. And the good way to listen to somebody is ask them questions about what they've talked about. Because if you're asking questions for what they've talked about, they know that you've been listening to what they've been saying. So that's really important. Everybody wants to be listened to. I promise you they do. And usually they get a good response back. So yeah, thank you so much, Jomer, for sharing that about listening. And James, just touching on James again, one last thing. James has created so much value out of trauma than I have. He works with councils, he works with the police, he works with the authorities, he communicates with different cultures of children from all different walks of life, where he coaches them with football and techniques. So he's created a lot of values. What action are you going to take to create values? We can walk the walk, but we have to talk. We talk and we walk. Have to go together. Talking, walking, walking, talking, both together. But we have to make sure we're making solid actions and moving forward. So thanks again, Jomer, for what you talked about. I really hope that the audience have really liked what we've talked about. We're looking forward to your feedback and your comments. As Jomer said, we're looking forward as well to interviewing and speaking to some of these amazing people in the Global Speakers Talk community. And I'm looking as well to bring some young people on here as well to interview and coach and work with them as well and tell them what I've been actually doing with them as well. So Jomer, thank you so much, my dear friend. I appreciate you. Audience, thank you so much for tuning in. You know what you need to do. We're looking forward to your comments and feedback. Thanks again for your time and your support and for listening to us today. We all appreciate you. Take care and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks again, Joe, my dear friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy. Much love to you.
Take care now. Thanks again. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.